The digital Americana Mixtape is like discovering a dusty cassette in your attic, sweeping away the mites, clicking it into a player and hearing some of the most warped and noisy indie rock blast through the speakers. It's like a Tony Molina album, but angrier. It's interesting because as far as I can hear, the focus is a lot less on the melodies themselves, but more on how the huge amounts of distortion and low quality can change the texture and shape of these tracks. Less like a noisy pop song and more like a poppy noise piece. It was also interesting to hear the lead singer squeal over the top of these songs. On the entirety of Throw Me a Bone, he could be speaking some deep and meaningful poetry, but it all sounds like the fella is just yelling woohoo over and over, like the video of that guy getting stuck in the water slide. It's anthemic, I'll give him that. I had to hit the reset button on my expectations to truly understand what the idea behind this mixtape was. If you peek under the covers, you'll spot obvious traces of particular indie rock and power pop, whereas some other tracks fit into the title's fancy by sporting an Americana or country sound, which is a strange pairing with the distortion. While these songs intend on not being hugely comfy at all, they do have a somewhat endearing delivery. After all, with this supposed mixtape being short and only half an hour long, the music doesn't seem to overstay its welcome too much. Of course, if you're looking for music with much depth or dimension, then that won't be here, as this is meant to be digested in quick, swift bursts like a shot. And my word, this thing turns everything into a blur as well. Despite that, it's weird to say that a big amount of the songs here are just flat out irritating to me, mainly as songs like Eviction seem like a high school garage rock band's jam, but with machine gun-esque sequenced drums and a squawking guitar melody that meanders like me arriving at a friend of a friend's party that I've been +1 to. These songs can keep a good rhythm, but I zone out over time because most of the focus is on how the songs gel instrumentally, and said instrumentals are just, I guess, a little bit plain. Weirdly enough, the most interesting songs on this mixtape are the noisiest ones like Cold Shoulder to Cry On, which is the very essence of trying to calm yourself down during a violent windstorm, or the frankly ugly but somehow simultaneously gorgeous jabs of piano on Care. Everything here sounds like it's playing from the bottom of a deep, echoey well, or falling apart as it continues onwards. A lot of this mixtape sounds ugly, but purposefully so, and it somehow strikes me well at points in spite of its very obvious flaws. My score is an honest, strong 5 out of 10 that barely scrapes the criteria for a 6 out of 10, mainly because it does have parts that I click with, but as a whole just seems to pass me by. It's not everyone's cup of tea, I don't think, but anyone with the patience for an early recording from car seat headrest has reason to give this one a go.